So you red eye?
I'm red eye.
Okay, Rich.
Welcome, Southwest Florida and all around the region. You're listening to SWFL Live on WKDW 97.5 FM, real community radio here in Northport, Florida, and live streaming at SWFL Live on Facebook and live stream. This is a show where we will discuss the local, regional, and national issues of interest that you want to talk about. We have the opportunity for listeners to call in at 941-564-8739. Make sure you write that number down. That's 941-564-8739 if you want to share your views on what we're talking about. You can also message me at SWFL Live on Facebook. So if you want to leave your comments there, we will take those into consideration and see on whether or not you've got something of interest to talk about. There will be some ground rules, and all calls are subject to time available. So if you don't get your call on the air, I'm sorry, but sometimes that will happen. Okay, the ground rules. I'll have subjects that we're going to discuss for the day. If you want to comment on those subjects, please call that number again. It's 941-564-8739. You will tell the screener your name, where you're calling from, and the subject you want to comment on. I'll give you 30 seconds to make your comment, and I won't guarantee you any more time. But if I think you're making a great, not a good, but a great point, I'll keep you on, and we might discuss your point more. If you use profanity, threaten anyone, or become rude or belligerent, I'll cut you off right then. And your number will be blocked. Got it? Good. That's the rules. So let the show begin. Today I feel like talking about the biggest news probably in Florida right now, and that is Hurricane Irma and the possible visit we might get coming this weekend. Also want to talk about the Braves spring training facility in West Villages. And nationally we'll talk about DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, that they are determining whether or not they're going to keep and how they're going to do that. So if you would like to talk about any of those subjects, please, again, call 941-564-8739, and we will start taking calls here in just a little bit. Obviously, first thing we're going to talk about is Irma. And my goodness, I've been around Florida for a better part of 33, 34 years. And other than Andrew, this is probably the one that's got everybody more worried, and rightly so. Right now, no one is absolutely sure where it's going to hit, and sometimes you can't take that chance. I've already seen friends on Facebook talking they're leaving tonight or they're leaving tomorrow. And hey, it's supposed to hit Saturday or Sunday. So it's probably a good thing to get out. But, with no one knowing exactly where it's going, where do you go east? Do you go west? Are you going to go north? I've seen tracks that take it all the way up into Ohio. I've seen tracks that take it into the Gulf and up through Alabama. I've seen tracks that take it off the East Coast and take it up into the Carolinas. So, where exactly do you go? And, there's 17, 18 million people live in Florida. If a third of those leave, that's going to be a lot of traffic. So just be careful. You surely don't want to get caught on the road in the middle of a storm. So if you're going to leave early. And what happens if you decide to stay? Well, there are some Sarasota County and Charlotte County do have shelters that will be available for those people. But this is just a comment. This isn't to fear anyone, but my lovely wife told me that, and one of the shelters that would be in place is Northport High School. And Northport High School was built to withstand a Category 3 hurricane. well, if this hits at 4 or 5, I don't necessarily know you're going to find a structure that's going to keep you safe with that. So, just be very careful about where you go and how you're going to do it. It might be a great idea to pack it up and leave now, but if you're going to stay, I want you to make sure that you understand that WKDW is an emergency radio broadcast system. And when they give us the word, we will start going 24 hours a day, as long as we can, broadcasting all the information that you're going to need, whether it be shelters, whether it be road closures, whether it be storm conditions. So make sure you know that WKDW 97.5, www.kdwradio.com, and then I will also be live streaming it on SWFL Live. We'll be doing it on the radio station's Facebook account. So you'll have a variety of different ways in order to hear the information. Obviously, it'll be all over TV. That'll be 24/7 for the next week or so. So anyway, just pay attention. From everything that I'm understanding and hearing from, water is going to be very hard to come by. So it might be a good idea to try to find containers and fill up water out of your house. I do know that they have containers. I did see yesterday anyway at Walmart where they had the water containers on sale. But I called Certain Water, and they are not going to receive another shipment of water till Friday, if it comes in at all. This kind of snuck up on everybody. I know they've been talking about it for a while, but guess what? No one expected it to be this kind of a monster. I also called Culligan Water, and their Venice office was running out this morning. So I'll be surprised if they have any. Just make sure if you are on Facebook or if you know, and hey, that would be a great reason to call in too. If you know someone that has water, or a company that is selling water, they already have the law that states you can't overcharge. So if you find that situation, there's numbers to call to report that. Hopefully, people aren't going to try to make money off of this situation, because it's a dangerous situation out there. No one knows exactly where it's going to turn. There's chances it could go into the Gulf, which would be worse for Southwest Florida, obviously, because we're going to be on the right-hand side of the storm. If it goes on the East Coast or up the middle, I don't necessarily know where the weakest is going to be in this storm. It's a monster. But the east side of the storm and the north side of the storm is typically the strongest. So if it goes up the middle of the state or it goes up on the East Coast, we would not be on the strongest side of the storm, which would be a benefit. If it goes just around the Keys and skirts up the west coast of Florida, that could be really bad for Southwest Florida. So it will make sure you pay attention. Let people know if you do leave, where you're going. And again, if you do stay, let people know you're staying so that they will know to look for you. Don't just be a hermit and stay, and not communicate with people. We will try to give you as much information as we can here at WKDW 97.5. Again, we are designated as an emergency radio broadcast system. So when they determine that is necessary, we will start going 24/7 with that information. And until we can, we at some point the mask might have to come down, and we're not going to be able to broadcast anymore. Afterwards, we are connected with FPNL. We have the same designation as the hospitals to get the power back on as quickly as possible. And then we also have generators. We are connected with the shortwave radio company, or not company, but club here in the area, and they actually have antennas on our mast, and we're going to start broadcasting news through them also. So as soon as the storm is passed and we can get the mast back up, we're going to be broadcasting. Hopefully, if you have a shortwave radio or if you have an emergency radio, a lot of those will have shortwave bands on it, so you can at least hear. I don't necessarily know anyone around here has gone through a 175-mile-an-hour storm. Nobody I know anyway. Andrew wasn't even that strong of a storm. So, let's just pray that it all kind of settles down. It might brush Cuba enough to where it'll disrupt the storm and it'll bring the winds down, and that's what I'm hoping. But regardless of the fact, we will be here for you. WKDW 97.5 FM, SWFL live. We're going to be broadcasting as long as we can. And we're not going to be heroes, but we'll stay on as long as we can and as long as it's safe to give you information. But you definitely need to be making your plans now. Listen, if you don't have water, if you do not have food, make plans to go to a friend's house, make plans to leave the area, make plans to do whatever. But this isn't one of those storms where, I'm going to have a hurricane party kind of a deal, because this could be a devastating blow to Southwest Florida or to Florida. You look at these tracks that are coming out lately, and I'm telling you, it's one of those things that kind of just puts the hair on the back of your neck up, because most of them do not look good. Most of the tracks do not look good for parts of Florida. And the latest ones are pushing it a little bit farther south and a little bit farther west. And that typically means it's going to cut back up the west coast of Florida, and that could be devastating for us. So, good friend Joe Maria just came back after 2 months up north, and I think he probably wishes he had waited a week. So anyway, let's talk about something that's a little bit more encouraging for this area of Florida. And that is that the state designated $20 million that the Braves and the county and the city and West Villages was hoping they would designate for the spring training. The Braves' new spring training facility, hopefully it's going to be opening up in 2019. That is the plan now. There's people right now putting plans together and designing and getting all the things they need to do to get this done now that the state has granted the Braves $20 million, or actually the county, because it's going to be owned by the county, but this facility. And the one thing that a lot of people are concerned with is the fact that it's corporate welfare. There's a lot of people that were very concerned that Northport's not really getting anything out of this because they're designating it West Villages and not Northport. Well, I would just caution you to not worry about that as much, because I've been following the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is Atlanta's huge newspaper up there, and it's got a lot more readers than our Northport Sun does, I will tell you that. And they are using the word Northport. They're not using the word West Villages. They're not using the word Venice. They're not using the word South Sarasota County. They're using the word Northport. And they just had an article 3 days ago about the fact that the state had given them the money, and their preliminary drawing is right at the very top of the page, and it says the preliminary rendering of the Braves' new spring training complex in Northport, Florida. And then farther down, it talks about the fact that the facility is located in Northport, Florida. So one of the things that the conservative impact study shows what a dynamic impact the Atlanta Braves spring training complex is going to have on the Northport, Sarasota, and the region. Northport. Now, think about this. This is Atlanta. Anybody who's grown up, 70s, 80s, 90s, when TBS was kind of the first of the huge superstations. and they used to cover the Braves, 24/7 practically. And so the Braves became sort of like the Dallas Cowboys. They became America's team on baseball, and because you could watch them every game. They broadcast every game. Not too many places did that at the time, and so there was such a following of Atlanta Braves, especially in the Southeast. And you got to understand, before the Marlins came and before the Tampa Bay Rays came, the Atlanta Braves, if you like baseball in the South, that's basically all you had. Especially, I grew up in North Carolina, and they did at one time back in the 60s had the Washington Senators, and, they moved out and became the Texas Rangers. So there was really nothing in the Southeast to follow except for the Atlanta Braves. And so, it didn't hurt that Hank Aaron was the home run leader back then in the 70s, and, he helped, promote that area and that ball team. And then when TBS took it over and Turner took it over and put it on his superstation, it just exploded. Well, what I'm basically getting at is for the whole month of March, and I will say a lot of February too, because pitchers and catchers usually report down here sometime about the second week in February. So for the better part of 6 weeks, you're going to have the whole Southeast hearing about Northport. And, I guarantee you can go north of Sarasota, and a lot of people have never heard of Northport. So what are they going to do? The Braves are in Northport. Where the heck is Northport? Well, they're going to start looking at it, and they're going to start finding out where Northport is. They're going to start talking about, man, we got to get down there to Northport and see the Braves. I mean, it's going to be absolutely a great thing. And for, a lot of people were concerned that, we're paying $300,000 a year. Well, over 30 years, that's $9 million. Now, they decided preliminarily to pay that all up front. So it's like $4.7 million that they will pay in one lump sum to this. So that in actuality, it's less than $150,000 for 30 years. You can't buy the kind of marketing that is going to give to us. I mean, not only is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but every single Atlanta station and probably most of the Southeast stations that cover the Braves are going to be talking about Northport. Let's head down to Northport and see what the Braves are doing. They'll be talking about the new facility for probably 6 or 8 months afterwards. So Northport's just going to get a huge amount of notoriety from this. And I think, when people start saying, the one thing that Northport needs is some sort of notoriety, well, this is going to be it. I mean, this is going to be something that they're going to be able to tout. And I will just say from the people, I don't care what Mattamy Homes wants. I don't care what West Villages want. I'm just telling you what's happening. And what's happening is they are referring to it there as located in Northport, the city of Northport. And so they can want it to say Venice, they can want it to say West Villages. That's not happening up there. And the Atlanta Braves and the people that are talking about it are talking Northport. And I just don't know that you're going to be able to get that kind of marketing for $150,000 a year. And that's what we're basically paying over the course of next 30 years to get that kind of notoriety. This is one of the most expensive facilities in all of spring training baseball. And the Braves are putting huge amount of money into this. It's not like they're going to sit there and pay $1 million and say, oh, I can jump out. That's what happened with the Marlins and Vieira a couple of years ago, 10, 12 years ago now, when the Florida Marlins started, and, they had a buyout clause. And after 7 or 8 years, I think it was, they were able to buy out of that location for less than $1 million. And they did. And, they did what the contract said. Well, they don't have that in this contract. And so there's a lot more to be able to keep them here, or they're going to want to stay here. Oh, do I have a caller? Why? What, is there somebody calling? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We're trying out the new call-in, so if anybody does want to call in, I'll give them the number again, 941-564-8739, if you want to call in about either the hurricane, about the spring training with the Braves, or about the DACA that they're talking about up in Washington. I know a lot of people probably don't even know what I'm talking about because everybody right now is concerned with this hurricane, and rightly so. But, you know, I will say this. 5 days ago, that was supposed to go off the East Coast. It was supposed to go up and possibly hit the mid-Atlantic states. And now, 5 days later, 4 days later, it's supposed to hit here. A lot can happen in that time. So, you know, things happen in the environment and the atmosphere that will brush this thing south a little bit. And if it hits south, what's that going to do? It's going to run it right over Cuba. Cuba's got mountains that are 10,000, 12,000 feet high. It'll rip this storm right apart. And then we'll get a lot of rain. But, you know, there's a good chance it might rip it out of hurricane status. And, you know, I'm not blaming, I'm not trying to wish any bad on the Cubans, but I sure would not mind if it kind of hugged the coast of Cuba a little bit and started disrupting this thing a little bit. Right now, it's roughly 175-mile winds. That's a pretty big storm, and there's gusts over that. You know, there's some talk about 185-mile-an-hour super winds. You know, it's out in the open ocean. It's not coming into contact with any land right now, so there's nothing to stop it. Once it gets around land and the drier air around land, sometimes dry air can go in there and suck the energy right out of a system. So, you know, let's don't completely panic yet. You know, there's a lot of people going to want to be leaving. I think they're even talking about the possibility of evacuations in Miami tomorrow. So, you know, there's only two ways to get out of Florida if you're south. That's 75 and 95. So best not to sit there and freak out and decide you need to leave before you need to leave, because there's a good chance if you've got this many million people, you know, it's terrible to say, but if you're not gassed up and you get out on that road and there's 6 or 8 million people trying to leave with you, you might not get very far before that thing comes right up your tile pipe. So just be careful. Do what you've got to do, but do it safe. All right. Looking to see if anybody is calling in. Not quite yet. So we'll just. This is the first day. You know, there's not a lot of forward notoriety about this show. We're launching it here the week before everybody is concerned about a hurricane. So, you know, hopefully people will start listening in. And, you know, if you have a question or if you have a comment, if you know where we can get supplies, please call in and let others know where you can do that. Looks like there might be a call coming in from the information I'm getting you, and we will see. All right, we have a call, Peter from Venice. Let me see if I can get that sent over. All right. We're testing out the new phone system today. We've done some preliminary tests. All right, so we do have Peter coming on. Do we know what Peter wants to talk about? Okay. We'll see. Peter, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I just landed. I just got here from North Jersey.
Okay.
A couple hours ago, and I hear there's a hurricane coming. I'm like kind of flipping out. Can you give me any information on it?
Well, yes, as right now, it is still located in the Atlantic. It's near the Leeward Islands. It's Category 5 at the moment. And, you know, the cone of uncertainty is what you need to understand with a hurricane. The cone of uncertainty puts it like it could hit South Florida sometime on Saturday or maybe early Sunday. They do not know exactly what the strength will be. There's some predictions that it could still be a 4 then, but it's skirting pretty close to the island of Cuba, and Cuba has pretty high mountains, hurricanes typically like really flat, and they like water. They do not like to interact with land as much because that kind of tears them apart. So right now, as we're speaking, it's a wait and see. If you've just come in, are you planning on staying for any time?
Yeah, I just came in from Europe. That's why I had no idea there was a hurricane or anything like this going on. I just landed a few hours ago.
Well, welcome to Florida. So, if you're staying in a hotel, they will tell you whether or not you can stay or not. They're not required to stay open. You might be asked to go to a shelter if you can't get a flight out. If you can get a flight out, and I would definitely suggest starting to listen to news media and the National Weather Service and find out what their prediction is. They might start closing airports within the next couple of days. So if you're flying in and out, you might want to see if you can book a flight out. No telling how long they will stay. If you're familiar at all with Houston, they had to deal with a lot of flooding, and they closed their airport down for, I believe, 2 days. And that really just threw a huge number of other flights into problems. So, what I would tell you right now is listen, prepare. There are going to be shelters all around if you can't get out. But if you have an opportunity to get out, you might want to plan your Florida trip later.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for calling.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. So that was Peter. Just flew in from New Jersey, but had been spending time in Europe. And lo and behold, he had not heard too much about this storm. I've got a sister out in Boise, Idaho. I guarantee you she's not really paying attention to this storm, other than the fact she's got a brother that lives in South Florida. So anyway, it might not be on everybody's mind like it is on ours. And so I can fully understand that. And again, the only thing I will say is to make sure that you prepare. You should have been preparing at the beginning. No one typically knows how many storms we're going to have, and it only takes one. I mean, Andrew they're named A, B, C, D, E, F, G type storms. So Andrew was an A storm, and it didn't hit until almost the middle of August. I think the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. So, that shows you how late in the season it could start. And it only took one, and Andrew was a devastating hurricane for southeast Florida. Homestead basically got wiped off the map. And so that shows you what can happen just with one really bad storm. We've already had a really bad storm, Harvey. It hit Texas. Hopefully Irma decides that she doesn't want nothing to do with Florida and just kind of teeters out over, we can all hope that it teeters out over Cuba. Or some other place that might not be as destructive. But anyway, I do need to make a real quick station identification notification here. You are listening to SWFL Live here on WKDW 97.5 FM, real community radio here in Northport, Florida. This would be the time that I would be able to discuss our sponsors, but this is a very new show. And so I don't have sponsors for this show, but if you would like to sponsor this show, you can definitely contact me here at the station, and we can talk about that. You'll be on, obviously, the FM radio station, KDW 97.5. You'll also be on broadband, which is www.kdwradio.com and on the internet. Or we can also do live streaming, in which we do live stream on SWFL Live on Facebook. So, we've talked a little bit about the hurricane, and we'll talk more about the hurricane. And, Peter called in just a few minutes ago and found out that we got a monster one coming right toward us. and hopefully he will pay attention to it. We've talked a little bit about the Brave spring training, and from my point of view, it is a good thing for Florida, and especially Northport. Florida is known and has been for 100 and some odd years for spring training, and it brings a lot of people down here. And you sit there and you say, well, but they're not really good jobs and they're only for a month. Guys, you got to understand, the more you get noticed, the more people sit there and say, oh, they come down here and visit. The more good chances you're going to have somebody, decision maker, say, wow, it's a gorgeous area. We have really great people here. We have a lot of land that we can develop as far as businesses and stuff like that. For them to make a decision to come here and start bringing the good jobs, that's slowly starting to happen. I mean, we've had a lot of people come here to this area since the Braves have been, talking about this. And some have made a decision to come here. Some haven't. But, it's one of those things that can help get notoriety for Northport. And, one of the things that I've talked about on my many shows, and, people that know me, I talk about this all the time, is the fact that we have 78% of the people that live in Northport work outside of Northport. I am about ready to try and convince people we don't need as much workforce development as you might think you do. Because if you've got 78% of 70,000 people, the workforce part of that, leaving this town every day to go to work, who knows what we might have Einstein in there. We might have the best engineer that money can buy there. We might have the best, computer scientists that money can buy. We've got some really great medical professionals that leave this area to go work. So why do we need all of this workforce development when we might just need the jobs to keep them here? And so hopefully that's one of the things that we're going to try to do, and one of the things that the Braves coming here and giving them another reason to say, hey, if the Braves trust this area, why wouldn't I? It's a great area, a low cost of living. Every day you see things that are happening in this area about Northport being one of the best places to raise a family, and Northport being one of the best places to have manufacturing, and Siesta Key and our beaches are always talked about being the best beaches, and they're only 20, 30 miles away from us. Low cost of living. We can probably tout that. If you go up to Sarasota or you go to Fort Myers, you will exactly know what I'm talking about whenever you say, wow, I want to buy a house, or I want to rent an apartment, or I want to rent a house. It's expensive up in those areas. And so, Northport doesn't need to just be a bedroom community. It can actually be a center for commerce, and it will only help the people that are here, that are paying taxes, because again, it's well known that businesses actually subsidize residents because they don't cost the city as much as they pay in, whereas a resident actually costs the city more than they pay in. So we are getting, you talk about corporate subsidies, corporate welfare, you might want to rethink that as far as the taxes that they pay into our community, because on the most hand, businesses actually pay in more than they ever get out of a city. And exact inverse relationship with residents. The residents cost the city more than they pay in. Somebody's got to pick that up, and it's businesses that pick that up. So they might get an incentive to do this, or a tax abatement to do that. But let me tell you, they're paying taxes that help all of us get services that we like. So, all right, the third thing I was going to discuss, if anybody would like to, again, we can give us a call at 941-564-8739. There is, if anybody is familiar with DACA, And DACA is the Deferred Child. Oh, I know it. Hold on one second. I will get this. Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And that was a program that Obama put in, I want to say in 2013, which basically, I guess the round number that everybody's throwing out is 800,000 kids that were brought into this country, usually at a very young age. And they came in with their family. And either that or they were, maybe, well, if they were born here, they're actually a U.S. citizen, so that would not be true. But they came in as a child or an infant or whatever. They came with their family. All right, somebody might be calling. Hold on one second. I got RJ. Okay. Let's call. Okay, so we will take another caller on the line. See, let's make sure it's gets thrown over. Waiting for the transfer now. All right. You're on the call with Rich. What can I help you with?
Oh, Rich, it's RJ, your station manager.
Hey, what are you doing calling?
I just wanted to make sure that you were actually doing your show and not goofing off.
Well, I am doing the show. I'm got some people watching me on SWFL. I'm hoping that we got people online watching us. Maybe you can tell me afterwards. But we're talking a few different subjects. Anything you would like to comment on, sir?
No, other than we will be running a test on Thursday of the emergency broadcast system here. So we'll be giving out some good information on the impending hurricane, and we'll be testing our connections with the police, fire, meteorologists, and a bunch of other people that have agreed to get information to us here in Northport. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. It'll be on Thursday between 2 and 3 o'clock.
2 and 3 o'clock. Okay, so I wanted to remind everybody, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but WKDW 97.5 FM is designated as an emergency radio broadcast system here for this area. And we are going to be providing information like nobody's business. I mean, we need to be the place that you turn to for local news, weather, and action, because the police department, the fire department, the shelters, all that information is going to filter through here, the weather. So we're going to have, you might be able to listen to Sarasota news or Fort Myers news, but they're not going to be talking a lot about this particular area, and we will be. And so if you really want to know what's happening and what needs to happen in Northport, you need to make sure that you tune in to WKDW 97.5 FM. You can also do on www.kdwradio.com, and then we will be live streaming on SWFL and all of our Facebook pages, the kdwradio.com Facebook page, the Common Grounds Facebook page. We're going to get it out there so that you can really understand what you need to do to be ready. Anything else, RJ?
No, that'll do it, and good luck to all of us, and stay safe.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so the boss is checking up on me. I guess he's listening, and he said, oh, okay. Yeah, but that's very important. Whenever you listen to the National Weather Service, a lot of that is going to be regional or statewide or something. We're going to get down to the city level here at WKDW. Now, we'll give you the national weather, or state weather, keep track of the hurricane, but, any road closures, any issues, emergencies, accidents that would impinge on getting you out of the area, we're going to let you know because they're going to let us know. They're going to keep constant contact with us so that we can get that information out to the public. And we have, again, been designated the Emergency Radio Broadcast Center for this area. So make sure that you do tune in. Again, if you've got social media, it's going to be on Facebook, It'll be on different Facebook, SWFL Live Facebook. It'll be on KDWRadio.com Facebook. It'll be on Common Grounds Meeting Hall Facebook page. So, it's just one of those things that you need to do. But also, signal-wise, 97.5 FM. And then if you're on the internet, and as long as you have internet, it's www.kdwradio.com. After the storm, we're also going to be broadcasting on shortwave. And, I will let you know when I know the frequencies that you can listen in. If you have a shortwave radio or an emergency radio, a lot of times they will have that on. Because, again, who knows what's going to happen to these radio towers. Ours is mobile. We can take it down. When the winds get to the point where we need to take it down, we will. And then we can get it right back up. And if you're on a major, radio tower, that might not be true. So some of the radio stations around here might be off the air. We are also designated with FPNL, the same as hospitals. So they're going to get our electricity back on quicker than normal, quicker than just a normal radio station, because we are an emergency radio broadcast center. And so we also have some generators that we'll be utilizing for shortwave and for electricity and things like that, and run the repeater and the transmitters and things of that nature. So we're going to be ready. We're going to test it out on Thursday. And then obviously Friday will probably be the day that we'll go into full action, and we'll be here as long as we can be. We're not going to be stupid, I will say that. It's not like you're going to see Jim Cantori out there trying to cover the weather. That's not what we're about. We're just trying to get you the information, and we'll let the professionals do that. We're all volunteers anyway. But anyway, so let's getting back to what we were talking about. DACA is a deferred action, childhood, what was it called? Arrivals. Deferred action for childhood arrivals. And it was basically the people that came over with kids, and the kids, they really didn't have a choice in this matter, right? And so there's a lot of people that are, really upset that this program might be ending. And I will say this, President Trump decided to put it in Congress's hands. And, politically, I think it's a cool move. I mean, because, there's a lot of people that are saying what Obama did was unconstitutional. He granted them rights to stay when they're not U.S. citizens. And, I'm not getting into that. But and he didn't go through Congress. He didn't get Congress to approve it. He did it through executive action. And, hey, he had the right to do so. But he had to have it basically limited to a certain amount of time, and that time is up. So President Trump decided, okay, well, we don't have a better thing to do. I don't really want to just, throw them out today or make them leave today or anything else. And so he's giving Congress 6 months to come up with a better plan. And it should be. I mean, again, everybody's saying we didn't hire a dictator, or we didn't hire a king. Okay, so he shouldn't make the decision. Congress should. So if you're in favor of letting the kids stay here, then Congress should be the one you call. If you're not in favor of it, Congress should be the one you call. Congress should make that, and then, Trump has demonstrated he's willing to sign about anything Congress sends to him. I just hope it doesn't get into the political game where, well, in order to do this, I want that. And it starts filling up with spending bills that, push the budget over $24 trillion. So anyway, DACA is one of those things that, it tugs at your heartstrings because, I don't know. I sit there and look at it and I say, there's laws and there's laws, and there should be a spirit of a law. The kids really had no part of this decision whether to come here. They basically were in tow with their parents, and so their parents are the ones that kind of got them into this situation. But if they've been here since they were 6 months old or 3 years old or 6 years old, I mean, it's a good chance America is all they know and understand. And now all of a sudden you're going to send them back to a country that they have no knowledge of, maybe no family in, and don't know the culture or anything else. That would kind of upset me a little bit. So I don't know. I'm gonna let hopefully Congress come up with a good alternative to just throwing them out. But what I will say is they need to fix it so that this doesn't happen again. And whenever you have open borders, that it happens again. So if you're going to have I'm a strong border person. I think we need to have strong borders. Every other country, sovereign country, that typically has a very solid border, and the ones that don't, like Germany, are now suffering from mass immigration problems. And we'll see how long Canada accepts the refugees moving up there, because they're going to find out that a lot of them don't come with heavy bank accounts, and so they're having to fund all their living expenses and their education expenses, and they might not be putting anything into the city or to the system yet. Hopefully they will. That's one of the things. I grew up, I worked for quite a long time in Plant City, Florida, and let me tell you something. I mean, that whole area is very agricultural, but my goodness, the economic benefit. I don't think Plant City would be able to sustain not having the immigrant population coming in there. When the strawberries and the tomatoes and all of that grow in that area, there's somebody out there picking it, and they come into town all the time and they spend their money. And so, I mean, it's a economic engine there. And so, you've got to kind of take that into consideration too. It's not like they're getting welfare. They're working their what's off, and they come into town and they spend their money, and they spend a lot of it. You talk to the shop owners, you talk to the retailers, and they'll tell you that, my goodness, if you didn't have them, one of the things, especially in Plant City, is that it was so close to Tampa, it was so close to Lakeland. A lot of people, similar to here, similar to Northport, they would leave this area to go shopping. Well, that's not true with that immigrant population. They come into Northport and spend the money. And so now it's started building up businesses, and it's starting to, get a spillover effect to where, okay, well, we're bringing in businesses that I'd like to shop at too. So instead of going to Brandon or going to Tampa or going to Lakeland, the people there are spending their money there. Well, that can happen here too. And, we've got a strong immigrant population, and they just happen to be Ukrainian. And you see that similar in Plant City. You have shops that'll only be in Spanish. Well, here you see them, and they're mainly in either Ukrainian or Russian language. But they're building businesses. K&K Bakery. I mean, how many people do not love K&K Bakery? And it's building those types of businesses, the mom and pops, and it allows for a diverse, selection for everybody that shops. 3:53 here. I, just wanted to let everyone know. I've got about 2 or 3 more minutes before we're going to close this out. First, here is this is the first show. Thank everybody for listening and calling. I just wanted to let everybody know we are going to start testing our system between 2 and 3 on Thursday, the emergency broadcast system here at WKDW. So make sure you pay attention to the radio, whether it's ours. Hopefully you'll do WKDW 97.5, but also SWFL Live on Facebook. We're going to get that information out to you. So just be very, very cognizant of the fact that there's a monster storm out there. You know, if you happen to know somewhere that there's water, I've called 2 different water companies today, and they were out. And so, you know, if the water companies can't really get it, you know there's a situation. But if you happen to know of a store that's got some supplies, let it out there. Because, you know, let's be like Texas. Florida, I surely hope, in this area, we can be like Texas. Texas really just showed the whole country what, if people come together, what they can do. And so let's get that attitude right now, that if we have a bunch of stuff that we bought and we don't need it, afterwards, we donate it. Or we take care of a neighbor, or we take care of someone else, and not just be thinking of ourselves and what can we do. So just want to thank everybody for listening in. This is SWFL Live, and we're on WKDW 97.5 FM, real community radio here in Northport, and we're also on SWFL Live on Facebook. So until tomorrow, 3 to 4, tune in, and we'll talk about whatever we decide to talk about. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.